Hello everyone. My name is Gunjan Jain. I'm with the Men's Initiatives for Transforming Relationships Through Action. What we do is self-explanatory in our name, I hope. We are a unit of CHST, an organization based in India. A very warm welcome to a special session that is going to take you on a journey which will be quite diverse. There will be discussions over here mingled with social activities and participation in practitioner tool building workshops also. So we hope you will stay with us till the very end. A few things to mention before we move on. This session will be conducted primarily in English. In case you want translation, then worldly computer generated translation is available. If you want to show it, Shanae, yeah. So this is possible in whichever language you want. The other help that we have is we have Christina with us, who is from Spain. So she speaks Spanish, and in case there is any participant who would like to have translation in Spanish, then I am sure Christina will be happy to pitch in. Right. So to give a brief introduction of this session and its outline, the presenters who are all here are part of a new youth practitioners network called BreakIN, which is engaged in dialogues on culture, religion, gender, and the influences that shape masculinities. All this sharing taking place in societies that are as contrasting or as similar, it depends on one's perspective, in the regions of Madagascar in Africa, Samoa in Oceania, Spain and Netherlands in Europe, and Sri Lanka and India in South Asia. The purpose of this youth caucus, which came together in 2019, has been to provide a platform where, in a way, sort of transnational strategic thinking can take place on how to sharpen the youth work. What's interesting is that this is a partnership which emerged out of an earlier global youth program. That one had taken a more generalized approach to involving youth in preventing gender-based violence. And over the course of that program, many of the assumptions on youth work were tested in a way, and it became obvious that in order to be effective, it was very necessary to politicize youth work and to look at changes in systemic structures of power at different levels. The gap that emerged was how do youth understand and express masculinity, and what is the relationship with it, and how can one get male youth to be involved as agents of change in questioning and reconstructing their masculinities, especially in societies where entering such conversations can in fact be very tricky. So this earlier youth advocacy network, Breaking the Cycle, evolved into its current new direction with a strong focus on examining masculinity norms and challenging traditional sources of patriarchal power. To give an example of the diversity of the global exchanges that have been taking place, for instance, in one of the interactions that I was a part of, we had interactions with corporate representatives who helped in looking at the powerful impact on youth of how big companies like beer brands influence different versions of masculinity through their advertising. So these discussions with the corporate brand representatives range from how traditional masculine values are getting reinforced to the need for more evolved communications which respond to the tensions that men and boys are facing with regard to their gender identities. So much of these kind of interactions and exchanges led to a very valuable common understanding among us all, and participants have been able to better inform existing interventions with youth. Documents and case studies of some of our work have been uploaded on the symposium website where this session features, and I definitely encourage all of you to check it out. So this session is divided into three parts. The first will be a discussion that brings to the table all that the young youth practitioners here from 6 different countries have to say on the context in which they work, how they've managed to sharpen dialogues on masculinities and feminism, and the impact this has had in changing patriarchal norms and systems. The second part of the session is a sharing by each BreakIN network partner organization of an innovative social activity used by them to open up conversations on what can be very difficult issues to raise. And I promise you, each country's social activity is absolutely marvelous. You will really enjoy it. The third part of this session are four very practical skill building workshops. They will be conducted parallelly through the breakout feature of Zoom. You could join any workshop of your choice. So there are four countries that will be conducting this workshop: India, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, and Spain. Uh, um, no, India, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, which is the fourth one that I've got wrong, Samita. Okay.
Spain.
Right. So what we are requesting is that when it is time to join a workshop, if you could please change your name on your computer so that we then know. So in case you want to join the India workshop, then you can, along with your name, you can write India, and we ensure that you're put into that workshop. In case you want to join the Sri Lanka workshop, for instance, you can type in Sri Lanka, and we will get back to you again with this whole thing of how to join which workshop. Um, um, right. So I think that's it for now. And with this, I hand over to Hannah Mars, who's the moderator of the panel discussion. Hannah is a youth activist working with Emancipator, the Dutch organization for men and gender justice. So over to you, Hannah.
Thank you very much, Jim. So, as Jim already said, from each organization that was a part of our project, we have someone here to tell you about our experiences, and I will very shortly introduce them to you. So, first of all, we have Cristina from Spain. She's a gender trainer and expert in development communications, coordinating and overseeing the extensive youth and gender work of the organization she's working at in Spain, as I already said. Secondly, we have Muir from Madagascar. She is a youth activist, passionate about youth empowerment, and she's working as the deputy director of Youth First. Then we have Petronilla from Samoa. She is starting not here because at the moment it is 3 a.m. in Samoa, so her contribution is pre-recorded. She is a volunteer at the Samoa Victim Support Group Juniors as a full member and facilitator for their campaign Start With Men. From Sri Lanka, we have Samitha, who works as the program director at the Foundation for Innovative Social Development. She's a trainer, advocate, and a consultant on sexual and gender-based violence and gender-related development issues, including working on men and masculinities for gender justice. And then from India, we have Shriti. She has a postgraduate degree in social work and has 10 years of experience working in the area of sexual and reproductive health and gender justice. So welcome all, and great to have you here. So my first question to our panel here would be if and how your participation with the BreakIN project has helped you to bring the youth you work with to enter into a dialogue on masculinity. And first of all, we have a video from Samoa reflecting on this. If you could show us that, Sine.
So our involvement in the BreakIN project helped us understand masculinity, first of all. Although it was pretty much the topic that was being discussed on how we can redefine masculinity and how we can reshape it to suit the times that we are in now, and as an answer to a lot of the growing issues that our communities face. It was really a front row seat for us to learn from so many different countries. And because BreakIN Project brought in different sets of ideas, different views, it was a learning space for Samoa. This really helped us in the launch of Start With Men Samoa that was later launched last year. And this campaign was really not only maximizing on the existing project that we already have in Samoa victim support. They have worked with men from 2008 in the Men Advocacy Program, but at the same time, this campaign targeted the youth. So the knowledge that we gathered from BreakIN Project, not only we gained friends and a family that addresses a certain issue, and at the same time we can fall back on and become our safe space when we needed to talk about the challenges that we are going through. But at the same time, it changed the whole conversation. For us, we came back with a very refreshing sets of ideas. Of course, and it was inspired mostly from our participation in the BreakIN project, but at the same time, we managed to normalize something very different, which is involving with men and boys as a very different tactic in combating domestic violence within our own communities. And with that, our greatest takeaway was the importance of unpacking on the issues and at the same time develop empathy in a lot of the questions that we ask, and weave that into the existing programs that we continue to roll out in the community during our work. So BreakIN Project has influenced us not only in engaging with men and boys, but also has influenced us to look at all our awareness programs and all our campaigns from very different sets of eyes, and to not only put out a campaign out there to bring awareness, but it was also important to leave the audience thinking. And with that, it really helped us a lot with to become critical thinkers, and it made us better facilitators in a lot of the programs that we have.
All right. It's a great message from Samoa. Miura, can you tell me a bit more about this and your experiences? As the organization you work with is mainly focusing on youth at first and not at gender.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Hannah, for giving the space for me to speak and to share a bit about the work that we are doing here in Madagascar, especially with young people. And first of all, we are really happy to have this platform to talk and to share the ideas, but most important. So what we are doing here in Madagascar is to really empower and to give a floor and a voice to young persons. And in that sense, breaking the cycle really helps us to, first of all, get to know more about positive masculinities, because this is something we can say something new to us, because before that, we did not really focus our works with young boys and how they can prevent gender-based violence. So we can say that this experience within breaking the cycle has been very beneficial for you first, in the sense that we engage everyone to prevent and to combat gender-based violence. And through every activities that we got, reflective workshops, exchanges with young workers, it really helps us to shape the programs that we are having here in Madagascar, because we are working with young people, working for young people, and it really helps challenging these norms into society. It cannot be made by only a certain group of persons. We have to involve everyone. And so if I can just sum up it into one word, the learning that we got from Breaking the Cycle has been very beneficial because it helps us a lot and it helps young people.
All right, thank you. That sounds great. So maybe I can tell you a bit more about my own experience here in the Netherlands, because that's a bit more specifically on the topic of youth work on gender specifically. With the workshops that we give to boys and young men, for instance, is that they have just never considered gender to be about them. And when we talk to them about gender, they will think of transgender people, for instance. So to have them have this conversation can be really eye-opening for them, because they will realize that it applies to them as well. Then, of course, as an organization, we have a quite specific perspective on this topic, as our work really is centered around masculinities. And youth work is a part of that, not the other way around. And this was absolutely not the case for some of the other organizations that were part of this project. So, Mira, could you tell us a little bit more on when or how you realized that specifically masculinities and engaging men has to be a central part of the work you do?
Yes, so I'm just going to share a bit of context here. In Madagascar, we conducted a survey last year, and 88% of young people responded that they have already experienced any forms of violence. And we also saw that most of these young people were women, and most of the perpetrators of the violence are young men. And so it became very clear to us that to transform the narratives, we need to engage everyone, and especially young boys, because we should think outside the box, and we should live out of what is the social norms and the toxic toxic masculinities and everything in the society. So it became very clear to us. You will see right after this panel discussion, the social activity that we've been doing in high schools, and you can really feel that there is still lots of stereotypes on genders and how young people perceive gender and gender-based violence, and how it's still being perpetrated along. So it really became very clear to us that we need to work, and we can really share that this work is beginning within the organization, within you first. And I think it's also beneficial because when we participated within this Breaking the Cycle project, we also initiated some discussions around masculinities and around engaging young men and young boys. And it was very fascinating how our male colleagues share their perspectives around that. And it's really something that is very important, I think. And so that is when we really think that we need to engage everyone, because nothing has to be done without every group.
Yeah, great, thank you. I really like what you say there about the work having to start within the organization. I think Petronilla from Samoa also speaks about that. We also have a video from her reflecting on this topic.
In order to implement change, we need to include the men. I still remember that conversation when Samita shared with us in Sri Lanka during the training of trainers. That echoed throughout our Start With Men campaign, and we realized that there's a huge percentage of men in our society that holds influential roles, and a lot of the young men that will soon in the future inherit those roles, being influential as the head of the family and as the protector in their relationship. And we saw how men plays their part not only in society but in the home, and it really made us reflect on the representation of men that we put out there. There is a lot of campaigns and awareness programs for violence against women and girls, and we can't help but notice that the representation out there is that it's either the men looks very superior and he is about to bash the woman, this is the reality of what's happening behind closed doors. However, we questioned if there is more representation for men that are actually loving their families, that are doing the work within their communities, who are being great role models for their children. So from there, we realized that engaging with men and boys and understanding that a lot of the issues in domestic violence really are preventable. And because we work a lot with the youth, we understood and foresee that these young people will soon become partners, will soon become head of their own families, will become fathers, and will inherit these influential roles. So starting as a preventative method, campaign, and intervention tactic where we focus on the men and trying to unpack and understand masculinity, the different expectations that society has right now on both genders, really made us realize that we need more representation of caring men. Not so much the masculinity that has been brought forth, through our parents' generations, and men don't cry, men don't show emotions. We needed to change the conversation, and we needed to have the representation for it. So for that, we created, campaign where it starts with men. It starts with you. The change is a ripple effect if you make a move, and the implementation of change happens when we include men, because that is how important they are in trying to move into a more prosperous future.
Thank you, Sinead. And I absolutely agree. We absolutely have to involve men to really make a change. For now, I would like to make a shift to a bit broader conversation. Shriti, can you give us some perspectives on the social-political environment in which masculinities are shaped in your country, and what the impact is of that on young people?
Yes, thank you, Hannah. So I am representing Mitra, and Mitra works with young men in rural and urban communities across the country. And we have, while we work, of course, we've realized that one of the factors that influence the young people is the socio-political environment that they're living in. So as you know, most of our the society in South Asia is inherently patriarchal. Not that other places it's not, but what we realized through this program also is that in other countries, the state makes an effort, or their programs have such provisions which addresses this inequality, or is moving towards a progressive shift where the toxicity or the masculinity that we are talking, which is bad, is being reduced. But here in India, sadly, in the recent years, what we are also seeing is that they may have a very fantastic policy, but even a very good comprehensive youth policy, but none of it is being translated into programs or any of the activities that is being conducted. And more so, they are, and even what is even more sad is that they are going and promoting ideas of nationalism, and which kind of says that only if you are you will be a nationalist if you have certain, if you are following certain ideology, or if you are having certain religious attributes. So a lot of this is impacting the youth because they want to have that sense of nationalism, and they are ready to then take up any kind of toxic masculinity to prove that they are they are very loyal to the country, or that is how they need to, or they will be considered as a citizen of the country. So this in one way is I think adding a lot of negative barriers to our work here. And this we have not just seen, because this is creating a lot of hate towards certain communities or certain castes, as you know, in India. So and this is just creating more hate, and a lot of rift is there, which we are able to see in media, or any kind of discussions that we have with the youth. And when we see that how the youth is being influenced is also technology. Because of this, a lot of youth in the remote areas are also being influenced. And I mean, I have also visited to villages where there is no the reach of basic education or food or healthcare has not reached, but such ideologies and groups of young men have been formed there. So that is one. And second is, when we interact with the youth, we see this conflicting they're in this constant conflict, because at a certain they have some access to the information about there should be equality, there should be non-violence, and they agree to it also. But on the other hand, they are staying in an environment which actually does not allow them to practice what they want to change. So they do tell us about they do believe in, and they don't want to continue these norms, these social norms which are promoting this toxic masculinity. But somewhere like one they say is, we have lack of agency because we are staying in families and communities where a young person is not allowed to take a lot of decisions, or will be considered out of the community if they go become radical, or like trying to bring new ideas. And second is also the other institutions that they are involved have their daily interaction are not with that same idea. They don't have the same progressive values. They may still be promoting ideas like boys cannot cry, or they have to be very manly, and they have to beat their wives. They still have that kind of notion. So the youth are in that conflict. And also another last thing is, we realize that we have to work with these different stakeholders and different institutions, because all of us should be giving that same message, I think. Because if they are in that conflicting situation and they don't have adequate support, then how much ever we work, if there is there's a chance that they'll fall back and they'll go back to their communities where they feel more connected, or more they feel respected, or they have those privileges also, where which they don't want to give up maybe. So so we realize that we have to work with all these stakeholders. And few instances also which when we worked like we came across is also like we talk about choice and consent of young people, and especially in the case when they have to choose their partners, because here in India a lot of marriages still are decided by the parents, especially for the girls. They're not even asked if they agree or they don't agree, they don't meet the partner. So a lot of these discussions, when we have, the young boys do agree that this change needs to come, the girl should have consent. But the support, like what kind of support we see from the state, is totally opposite. In fact, now they want to come up with laws where they will decide who the boy or the girl can marry. I mean, it is going to restrict, like you only have to marry within your community. So this is totally against the constitutional rights. And second, also when we work with the youth, we realize that in principle everybody agrees to violence is not acceptable, but when it actually comes to supporting or practicing, it is still very difficult for the youth. Like we had one instance in one of our groups where a daughter of the group member was sexually assaulted, and he wanted to file a complaint. So there was this big discussion, and a lot of people did not support him. Like even the young people who were very enthusiastic and they would say that violence is wrong, at that point they did not come in support of him. So we also realized that it's not what they agree to is not exactly what they are going to take ahead, because they even try to discourage the person from taking the complaint ahead, because the perpetrator was from, you know, politically influenced or very influential family in the village. So these are some of the you know, experiences, how there is a lot of influence from the political and social circumstances.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's really great to hear now how our project has brought together people from so many countries and so many different contexts as well. And I think we all learned so much from it. For me personally, one of the most valuable lessons from the project was the way that masculinities are so different in each culture, but at the same time so very similar. And I was, Samita, could you give us some insights in that as well?
Definitely. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you everyone in the Breaking the Cycle for bringing me into the roundtable to share some of my ideas regarding the project. And first of all, I need to say that, of course, this whole project was a youth engagement project where a few of us, like, you know, like myself, Rimjim, Satish, and Kaska from Spain, Rimjim and Satish from India, we actually brought some of our experiences of working for years, you know, with young people to this platform where we share it with other young people. I think we sometimes we see very successful projects basically done only with the youth participation, you know, designed by youth and implemented by youth, and all engagement is by youth. But this project is very unique because, you know, we actually had participants coming from very fresh knowledge of men and masculinities, and also countries, participants coming from countries who had years of experience working with men and boys, like Jens from Netherlands, you know. So I and also, although we had years of experience in working in our own context, they are so much very contextual, you know, like we have tested so many kind of, you know, tools and methods and approaches in our own communities, where we have our rural communities, and we have the rural type of family context in our own settings. But, you know, sometimes we get so overwhelmed with our own practices, and we don't see that there are a lot of other things happening around the world. And this project actually gave us the opportunity to mingle with other countries with so many different perspectives on men and masculinities, and so many approaches in so many different contexts. So I think it was a very kind of a learning environment where we had in the Breaking the Cycle. And also particularly to mention the TOT that we had in Sri Lanka, where all the 5 countries came in, and they actually presented their own tools and approaches that they used in their own countries to work with youth, to work with communities. And that was a, you know, that was a very good eye opener for many of us to see that. I mean, for example, in countries like ourselves in Sri Lanka, we have very limited kind of, you know, space to work on LGBTQ community with men and masculinities perspective. But you, for example, Hannah, in Netherlands, you are working with so many people who are coming from that community. And at the TOT, when you brought those, you know, experiences and the approaches that you used to work with these people, actually that was a very good learning point for us, you know, kind of how we can kind of contextualize that same approaches and see whether it works in our context, and whether we can take the same dialogue with the people that we have not touched earlier. So I think all in all, I think this project actually gave a lot of space for us to exchange ideas. And of course, each group from each country had the opportunity to visit each country and kind of, talk to people then and there, not like, work through documentation and work through kind of reading a case story or whatever, but we had the opportunity, and our youth actually had the opportunity to go and visit and talk to people and engage and do, for example, the opportunity we got to do a workshop with the youth from Spain in the school that we were presented, and that was quite a kind of new experience where like to understand how young people from a different context feel about something and respond to something, and to kind of see and also to kind of question your own approaches, and to see whether you need to kind of bring more innovative kind of things while working with youth. And also this project also gave us the opportunity to take these components into our own communities back and see how it works and how it doesn't work. So I think for Sri Lanka, it had been a great opportunity to see how different contexts work, how different approaches actually works in different contexts, and I think it gives a lot of future kind of aspiration to the youth that engage in the project from Sri Lanka.
That's great, thank you. So there's one country we haven't heard from yet, Christina. Of course, you were the ones who organized the whole project behind the scenes, but of course, I do hope you have also gained some insights from it. Can you tell us something about your experiences with the BreakIN Youth Network?
Yeah, for us it was unexpected because it started to grow since the very beginning of the idea of BreakIN. Even before we developed the BreakIN project, we already started with some youth network that was engaged already and wanted to talk and to work on these aims. So it was great experience to have so many people involved. And also to have so many young people involved, because in our work, we are used to work with young people here we live in a rural area. Not always easy to engage them in the community and in the work that we are doing in gender and in masculinity. So having the opportunity to work with many different countries and organizations, focusing on, we worked with the same aim, but we were working in different areas. So that enriched a lot not only the project, but the network that we could develop at the end. Also taking them as Amita was saying before, having the opportunity to meet people from other countries, but live meetings, right? Now it's not that easy, but we have the chance. We were very lucky of that, because that helps a lot to also have an impact in the communities, in the local communities. In our organization, that helped a lot to make visible all the work that we were already doing, having the people from the community also engaged there. Also, this network helped to, during the project, during the BreakIN, we were able to develop also materials and methodologies. We were sharing experiences. That also helped to implement programs and the work in the field. And that was also new, and being the organization coordinating the project, that also was challenging but very rich to work face by face with many professionals on the same, and learn from them, and being able to implement that in the organization, that at the end have been able to keep this objective. So
thank you.
Thanks.
I'm afraid we're running out of time, so I think I will give the floor to Samita now to wrap it up, and give us some insights in the outcomes and cross-cutting themes and the impact of the project.
Thank you, Hannah. I think listening to all the conversation that happened so far in the roundtable, I think it actually kind of, gives us the impression that the importance of looking into the issues of young people and kind of, engaging them effectively in projects where we look at masculinities in terms of, how young people want to look at it and how they want to kind of, have their own self-reflections. So I think to kind of, wrap up the session, I just wanted to say that this project had been a 2-year project. I think 2 batch of young people had the opportunity to kind of have the exchange visits and also to bring back the learnings to their own countries and also engage with their own youth in their own communities. And also this project kind of, contributed to, as Christina also mentioned, to collection of good practices from all 6 countries. And also we were able to put together all our knowledge and all our experiences together to develop an advocacy toolkit where we kind of, had 30 days challenge introduced to young people, which they can, kind of, practice within their day-to-day life. Take one challenge at a time, one challenge at a day, and then see how you can kind of, practice that. And also I think this project generated a lot of new capacities, generated a lot of new methodologies where young people kind of, went back to their own communities and tried. So I think just to kind of, link it also with the symposium thematic areas where we kind of, we looked at the intersections of youth, and we also looked at how youth can kind of, work along with the communities in collectively to bring the component of power with, so that, that they have their collective voice brought forward, and also to kind of influence their own peers into taking these challenges. So I think all in all, this whole BreakIN the project is very much a kind of a very learning journey, I would say, for all young people. And to anyone who wants to kind of, take the journey forward, they can look at the materials, look at the outcomes of the project and take it forward. So I think, Hannah, I would like to thank you so much for moderating this session, and also Rinjing for organizing the whole team to come together today to have this event with all the 6 countries. It had not been an easy task, I'm sure, bringing all the people and having all the background discussions. So I think altogether I thank every country, especially Christina and Kaska, for kind of, making this all possible for all the countries. And I will hand over to the next activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samita.
Can I, Hannah, can I just, there is somebody who would asked a question which somehow came privately to me rather than to everyone. So I feel it is an important question which does need to be handled. So Sulaksha had asked that I have a question about positive masculinity. I believe masculinity itself is harmful. Because we've been talking repeatedly about this whole project managing to encourage positive masculinity and non-hegemonic forms of masculinity. So I think my short answer to that is that masculinity by itself is not the problem. It is the expression of masculinity. It can be, masculinity which is non-hegemonic. It can be alternative forms of masculinity in a positive way. But it's the way that we are socially conditioned to understand what is masculinity and to express it, which is the problem. So if anybody else would like to take that question and answer it, it would be good.
I think, Rimjim, you explained it well. So for the time constraint, we should move forward. And maybe if needed, we can also use the chat box to give our own, feedback for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Rimjim. If there are no more questions, I think we will go on. Just the next thing on our agenda is a short video showing some images of the different meetings and visits to other countries, just to give you an impression of all the activities and the project as a whole. So Sinead, if you can show us the video.
ये बहुत सारी लड़कियों को इंस्पायर कर रहा है, उनके अधिकारों के बारे में बता रहा है। कई बार होता है कि हमें पता होता है कि हमारे अधिकार क्या होते हैं, बट हम इसलिए कदम नहीं उठाते कि कोई और नहीं उठा रहा। क्या दो औरतों का साथ रहना सही में जुर्म है? और अगर नहीं तो फिर क्यों हर नियम और कानून का पालन करने के बाद भी रोज इन्हें बेघर करने की धमकी दी जाती है?
बच्चे को चोट लगी है, अंदर जाने दो।
बट जो मेला लगा इससे गर्ल्स इंस्पायर हो रही हैं, और हम जो यहाँ पर बहुत सारे NGOs आए हैं जिनका प्रयास है, मुझे वाकई बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है कि इस देश में बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो इस प्रयास में हमारे साथ हैं।
भाई साहब, हाँ भाई साहब, मार रहे हो बहन जी को? अरे भाई साहब, मैं जब भी काम से लौटता हूँ घर पर ताला लगा मिलता है, ताला पता नहीं कहाँ गोल छर्रा उड़ा रही होती है। बस इतनी सी बात। आपको पता है महिला को पीटना या गाली गलौज देना या ताने देना कानूनन अपराध है, आपको जेल भी हो सकती है।
ये बहुत अच्छा इवेंट हो रहा है क्योंकि बहुत सारी चीज़ें यहाँ पे लगी हुई हैं, बहुत सारे पोस्टर्स, बहुत सारे पैम्पलेट्स, चाहे वो उसमें कोई रिपोर्ट हो किसी बच्ची की या फिर उसमें कुछ कोई कोर्स लिखे हो जेंडर के बारे में, चाहे वो समानता के बारे, इक्वालिटी के बारे में हो, चाहे वो पेट्रियार्की के बारे में हो। बहुत सारी जानकारी हमें खुद भी मिली क्योंकि हम इसी टॉपिक पर काम करते हैं। हम बेसिकली जेंडर के मुद्दों पर ही काम करते हैं। तो यहाँ पर आकर हमें ये लगा कि हमारे साथ और भी बहुत सारे लोग जुड़े हुए हैं जो हमारे साथ इस काम में लगे हुए हैं।
कहाँ जा रहे हो? चलो, क्यों काट रहे हैं?
लड़की चाहे ही कितनी पढ़ी लिखी क्यों ना होकर लड़कों की बराबरी नहीं कर सकती।
Right, it gives you a certain power. मर्द होना मतलब एक पावर है आपके पास में. But actually, if you explore it a little further, masculinity really doesn't give you power. It gives you this sense of entitlement.
पंचायतों में हम और संसद में भी और कॉलेज में भी और सड़कों पर भी दो चारों में हम हजारों में हम बाजारों में हम परिवारों में हम अन्याय से हम असमानता से हम जेंडर इनइक्वालिटी से लड़ेंगे।
All right, so it turns out I was wrong. This was not the video showing you the project. This was the social activity video from India. So we got things a bit mixed up. I'm going to hand over to Delisha now, who will explain about the social activity videos. Thank you.
Yes, I hope everyone can hear me. Hi everyone, I'm Delisha from Sri Lanka, representing the organization Foundation for Innovative Social Development. Actually, we just concluded a wonderful and a very informative roundtable discussion with our very own participants of BreakIN the Cycle project. So we would like to thank everyone, including the audience, actually, who interacted with the session. And with that, we now move on to the next session of today's program. And you saw, I think, a very kick-starting video from India to introduce our next session of the program, which is about social activities. So as you all witnessed in the discussion, we, the project partners of the BreakIN Cycle project, entailed multiple dialogues on culture, religion, gender, and drivers of change in masculinity conceptions in contrasting societies like Africa, Oceania, Europe, and Asia. So we also learned how differently creative cultural tools can be used to engage youth through the lens of masculinities and gender. So the video that we watched from India, it actually talked about how street plays in India are used to advocate against gender-based violence. So actually we like to thank you, Team India, for giving us that wonderful video. So while thanking the Indian team, we now move on to the next performance. Before that, I would like to know about, did you know that the societies actually recreate and reflect masculinities and feminities through tempo and rhythms? It will be very interesting to observe that tempos and rhythms of the musical instruments influence in provoking gender stereotypes in different cultures. Can these tempos and rhythms also be used to break traditional masculinities and feminities in each culture too? Let's figure out an answer from the performance of Kapila Rasnayaka from Sri Lanka. As the founder of Voices of Humans, Kapila works to promote genderless society. He is a global advocate on gender, human rights, and sexuality. And he is also an expert in art-based approaches to address social issues. Over to you, Kapila.
Music gives us power and energy and brightens our souls. Yet it's worth questioning if music has anything to do with gender and power in culture and society. How does music in its gendered cultural form creates differences and power imbalance in the society? We conduct series of workshops to challenge controlling and power-driven masculinities and femininities through music. We play 2 music tracks and we ask from the participants, how you feel this music? First music track, they said that it's more about men and their emotions. And the second music track, participants said that second music track, it's more about women and girls, their emotions. Then we realized that music can interpret masculinities and femininities in a different way through rhythms, through music patterns, and through different kind of sounds. How does it affect our emotions and way of life? How has the music been used to disempower women and had limited their energy towards emancipation? And most of the participants said that the music and sounds also, it has a relationship with our emotions. I really believe that emotions are real, but the way people express emotions are constructed and gendered. Therefore, this is the time to rethink about how music can interpret masculinities and feminities, as well as we can create new form of music to generate the idea of gender sensitive music. And also then it will represent neutral emotions, as well as it will give different colors for men and women. How these music tracks and the music patterns and sounds matter to men and women in this society, and how it affects the relationships and day-to-day our lives. In the patriarchal society, we always saying that gender-sensitive language, gender-sensitive word, then why we can't establish gender-sensitive music? And that's why we introduce these workshops to create this idea, dialogue, to aware about how music industry establishing these masculinities and feminities, as well as how we can recreate gender-sensitive music. Music can make lives better. Therefore, it's really important to create new form of music to deconstruct these masculinities and feminities. Therefore, I'd like to invite you all, join us and just think about how music can change the world to make beautiful lives for men and women and for other living beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kapila. I think we also need to give a chance to Mahendra Kumar from India. Well, he has something to tell about his video that we played a while ago. So over to you, Mahendra Kumar.
Yes, thank you, Dilesha.
Sure.
Two engaging men are motivate the youth to bring change in the gender and masculine roles and publicize the youth efforts at self-change. We use organized different types of activities and in such way, Gender Mela is a big events in which men share their personal stories and try to create a violence-free environment for women. The fair includes different kinds of competition based on different rules, reverse game for youth. As you see, street play in the social activity. So street play are used to make people aware on a large scale about gender discrimination, violence against women and toxic masculinity. In the gender mela, through this activity, we also try to identify various stakeholders and plan to work with them in future. And another activity that you have shown, snake and ladder game. This is an age-old game which has been adopted in a new way of us to raise issue regarding gender inequality and violence can be boring. So game is very useful in raising serious issues in an interesting way. This game has used for many years in training and meeting to people to challenge and self-reflect on issues of masculinity, gender and violence. And in such way, we also use the game balloon game to increase reflection and build understanding how hegemonic masculinity perpetuate violence and legitimate it. We organize the balloon game. In this game, we want participants to see that people always want to ensure their own victory and others defeat, and for this they try to harm them to ensure their victory, and due to fear of defeat people always try to use masculine power and commit violence on others. However, the balloon game brings out that people can work collectively for everyone's victory. So thank you, Dilisha.
Thank you so much, Mahendra. On the list, our next presenter is Hannah Mas from Netherlands. Since 2017, she has worked for Emancipator, the Dutch organization for men and gender justice. And in her work, she focuses on involving men and boys in the prevention of sexual and gender-based violence and involving men in both formal and informal care work to transforming masculinity norms. Hannah, so what do you have for us today from Netherlands?
Thank you, Delisha, also for the introduction. So we have a video from a theater collective. They are called Boys Won't Be Boys. And they have a theater show where they do performances with groups of men who tell about their way of being a man and showing the audience the diversity and all the possibilities of masculinity. And they use theater and songs and poetry and spoken word and drag and dance and much more. It's a really nice show. And the video shows an interview with two of the men that are in the show.
Ik ben Jorrit, ik ben vader van 2 kinderen en ik ben zanger en theatermaker en speel mee in de voorstelling Boys Won't Be Boys.
Ik ben Redouan Amin en ik ben ook onderdeel van de voorstelling Boys Won't Be Boys.
Ik ben Rickert en ik heb de voorstelling Boys Won't Be Boys gemaakt. Dus ik ben theatermaker en ik geef ook les over het onderwerp gender.
I am a poor wayfaring stranger, by traveling through this world of woe. Yet there's no sickness, toil nor danger in this bright land.
Ik heb het idee dat er van jongens heel veel wordt verwacht. Van wat ze moeten doen en wat ze moeten kunnen en zo. Daar ben ik met jongens over gaan praten.
Ja, dat mannen bijvoorbeeld bij wijze van spreken rokkenjagers moeten zijn. Mannen moeten op vrouwen vallen. Mannen moeten een beetje sterk zijn. Mannen moeten macho zijn. Mannen zijn de leiders. Mannen zijn... Je kan het zo gek niet benoemen. Alle cliché dingen die je wel eens gehoord hebt over wat mannen zouden moeten zijn. Als je die nu even in je hoofd haalt. Dat is wat ik bij me droeg.
Toen ik op de middelbare school zat, kropte ik eigenlijk alles op. Hield ik alles binnen. Was ik heel erg stil. En had ik het heel erg het gevoel dat ik dus niet mezelf kon laten horen of kon laten zien. Ik voelde me niet gezien. En dat had voor een deel denk ik te maken met wat mijn ouders van mij verwachten. Of in ieder geval wat ik dacht dat ze van mij verwachten.
En ik vraag me wel eens af eigenlijk van wie heeft eigenlijk al die gendernormen bedacht? Want het verandert namelijk de hele tijd. Dus die regels voor mannen en vrouwen veranderen de hele tijd. Vroeger had bijvoorbeeld Maria, de maagd Maria, de moeder van Jezus, was altijd in blauw. Ja, was een pure vrouwelijke kleur, blauw. Maar nu is blauw weer voor jongens. Ik denk dan van wie zit die regels de hele tijd aan te passen? Is daar een soort van vergadering, een soort conferentie in Genève, in zo'n groot gebouw, in zo'n flatgebouw. En dan zitten ze met van die flipovers en van die pennen. En met elkaar af te spreken van vandaag, dit jaar, is voor mannen is het heel erg dit. En voor vrouwen is het heel erg dat. En op de een of andere manier komen wij er dan achter en dan gaan wij dat allemaal precies doen.
Dus wat je heel vaak ziet en hoort is best wel bepalend voor hoe mensen zich gaan gedragen. En dat noemen we vrij snel socialisatie.
Je wordt geboren als kindje en je kan eigenlijk nog alles worden. Maar eigenlijk word je soort van in tweeën gesplitst. Zo van alle meisjes die mogen alleen maar dit en alle jongens mogen alleen maar dat. En vervolgens leren jongens dit en leren meisjes juist het andere. Dus bijvoorbeeld jongens gaan dan allemaal op voetbal en meisjes gaan allemaal op ballet. En als dan een meisje heel hard tegen een bal trapt, dan zeggen heel veel mensen van, oh, dat is net een jongen. Terwijl, dat is volgens mij voetbal. En als een jongen zo gaat dansen, dan zeggen heel veel mensen van, oh, dat is net een meisje. Terwijl, dat is dansen.
Ik merk dat ik sinds ik vader ben en wist dat ik vader zou worden, heel anders ben gaan kijken naar mijn eigen vader en naar mijn eigen ouders. En ook naar hoe het is om vader te zijn en hoe je dat wil doen. En dus ook hoe ik vader wil zijn in deze wereld.
That was a great performance. Thank you, Team Netherlands. Let's also hear from Cristina from Spain, who is a gender trainer and expert in development communications, coordinating and overseeing the extensive youth and gender work of Serjavi. And her focus will be on how non-formal methodologies provoke youth reflections on gender assumptions. Over to Spain.
Well, thank you. We also wanted to, thank you for the introduction. We wanted to show one of the projects that we run during the last 2 years. We brought some pictures to help me to explain the activities, and we always try to use new methodologies to work with youth because they get bored and tired of things that are not really like different and engaging them. So we try to get the best, they get different activities to be able to know which of them were working better for them and have a bigger impact. So if you can run the video, I will explain by the time that the pictures are shown. Well, the project was developed by regional level with more than 10 towns in the rural area that were involving. We had the opportunity to engage also some other organizations, not just to work with youth, but with the people that it's working with youth to implement these methodologies. And the beginning of the project started to work on gender equality. So we divided the groups first with girls and other groups with boys to be able to work with them different things due to the different backgrounds that they have. And then we put them together in the bigger group to put in common the reflections. We also have some posters that we gave to the high schools that are talking about different situations where a boy or a girl had to live in. So there are some things to have the new masculinities or other masculinities. We run a photography competitions. Those pictures are from the competitions talking about gender equality and how youth saw this situation. And we also wanted to share one of the short videos that they did and do it to this aim on gender equality and discrimination against women. And it's just two short videos with some thoughts and reflection from the group of youth that we have. The first one with some sentences that they are used to hear when they are in the streets, and the other one, how women have to live the way back home from the party or from the go out. And this was another activity. It was a debate. And at the end, we have the second part of the Cosmos project that was most focused on masculinities. We had the chance to implement also with the BreakIN project to the Cosmos one. And that's what Samita was at the beginning also explaining, that we have the opportunity to implement different workshops with the organizations that came in Extremadura, in Spain, with the young people from the high schools from the regional area, and that was very useful for them. During these workshops, we also have a bigger meeting. The youth have the opportunity to know their cultures, know their experiences on gender equality and on masculinities. We implemented these round tables. We have an intercultural meeting, not just with youth, but with the people that is working with youth, to get them and to spread the methodologies that we were working, and also to keep on learning about the experiences and the knowledges from the people. And the material that we developed by the BreakIN project, that was also developed, spread by Cosmos, was the one that you are seeing, list of recommendations, a good practice guide, also the 30-day challenges, when you can do a challenge for each day, an action guide. And well, all of the materials are also on the website. And that helped a lot to the young people and to the workers that work with youth to be able to implement detailed activities that we could prove at the beginning and during the project, so they have them available. And that was also a very good part from the Cosmos project and the BreakIN one. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, we did enjoy. So we now have with us young and energetic Karen, representing the team of Madagascar. Karen is an activist committed to using her storytelling skills and her knowledge of the digital world to change behavior and attitudes, especially regarding the place attributed to women. So to give you a brief on the upcoming social activity of Madagascar, they have sent me this brief intro that needs to be read out right now. So in Madagascar, gender stereotypes are still well entrenched. Youth First as an organization has therefore gone to a high school in the capital of Madagascar to initiate discussions and to engage them to challenge the stereotypes through an activity focused on art. This included the realization of mural painting with a well-known artist in Madagascar. So pushing young people to express themselves and to question what society has imposed on them is the objective of the upcoming social activity. So over to you, Karen, to present your social activity to all of us.
Hi all, and thank you, Delisha, for the presentation. So as Delisha tell it, so I'm Karen, I'm from You First, representing here Madagascar. So regarding the social activity, we've been thinking about challenging the statu quo regarding the way masculinity and femininity are shaped in Madagascar. So that's why we decided to conduct the activity in a high school in the capital of Madagascar. So it was really a way to initiate discussion and create a safe space for youth, for young people, so they can express themselves. So it was not really about confronting the values the family have been passing on, but it was more about making them question those stereotypes. So why situations are the way they are. So to be honest, we didn't really expect to hear what the young people have said during the activities, but it's also a way to show you how traditional masculinities and feminities are still shaped and are still entrenched in Madagascar, especially in young people. So for now, I'll let Delicia screen the video, or am I supposed to do it? Ready, great.
Iray W maneso ny ao toko tamin'ny mpianarana koa torak'izay impiry moa izahay no latsain'ireo kolonga toanay hoe zanaka tsy afaka na koa hoe bota tonontrozy na mahita ony kifafa tsy fantatry ireny zaza ireny angambany hoe nianiany sy mierisetra zavatra samihafa tsy nahalala izay tokony hitarainany neny variana malahelo dada mandatsy hoe elava
misy lalao kely sy hetsika ho karakarainay androany mba ampahafantarana antsika an'ilay zavatra ho atao
daholo ny ankizy fa ny atsaratare tsy midika atsaram-panay
Arrivo izay amanay it's samanapchis Yesetra tsaradrariny eftena ovitianis haroviza eo
lehilahy olona matanjaka izy amin'ny lafiny rehetrarehetra ara-tsaina ara-batana
na ny lohany loha fa raha amin'ny androtsika dia ohatrany hoe tsy mety tsony le hoe ny lehilahy no mitady satria efa sarotra ny fiainana
raha eo amin'ny fianarana manokana samy hoe manana tanjo zareo mba hanatratrarana fianarana dia raha eo amin'ilay hoe tsy mahasala ny zareo indray ny lehilahy indraindray somary hoe maranidranitsaina kokoa noho ny vehivavy nefa tsy dia tena hoe mifanalavitra be ilay izy ny lehilahy zao somary matanjatanjaka kokoa dia ny vehivavy somary mba ambanimbany kokoa ny toe-batany
araka ny lalàna ny fiarahamonina zany ny lehilahy natao lohany amin'ny fiainana dia ny vehivavy manaraka fotsiny
ny lehilahy sy ny vehivavy afaka mitovy satria samy efa mandeha ampianarana dia samy mianatra dia afaka samy miasa samy manana rôle ao anatin'ny fiainana tsy voatery hoe maheriseritra daholo ny lehilahy
misy ny lehilahy voataiza tsara hatramin'ny kely anazy
ny tena marina zany tsy tokony vonoina zany le vehivavy fa raha azo mbola atao aloha mandefitra sy mandamina foana zany tsisy tsy vita ny resaka zany fa ifampiresahana ny zavatra rehetra
tsy voatery ampiasa herisetra ny vo lehilahy ny toe-tsaina no mitondra ny zavatra rehetra sy ny fifampiresahana fa tsy ny herisetra ny fitiavana mbola mahery no mifandry
volany mamafy be isetra tsy hoe akory tamana fa ny fahantrana mirima amin'ny hoe miafy be ka iaretan'ireo obo sy ny lasa taon'rindra azy tokantrano fiafiana zay angambany tsy nampifindra azy mierisetra miatra aminy sady fietsika
matetika ny lehilahy tsy rehesahan'ny olona rehefa resaka hoe herisetra dia nefa ny be dia be ny herisetra miasa amin'ny nefa ny samy olombelona ihany samy manana fo tsy hoe akory hoe lehilahy dia tsisy sentiment zany tsy mahazo mitaraina zany dia hoe vehivavy dia hoe tsy maintsy malefadefaky tsy maintsy ao an-trano dia mikarakaratsika trano dia zay zany le titsika edivana androany
dia manomboka mbola kely tsika dia efa zarina hoe aza mitomany rehefa lehilahy dia rehefa iny zatra iny ianao dia miteny ianao hoe zaly izy tia tomany amin'iny zany na misy maty ary ao an-trano dia hoe ny lehilahy tsy mitomany zany izy zavatra izay dia mahatonga ny lehilahy rehefa voakorotana kely amin'iny dia maneho herisetra satria maniny izay ny any ahony fa lehilahy izy
Ny lehilahy zany tsy mametraka important hoe za aloha zay vao ao an-trano fa ny ao an-trano aloha zay vao za. Raha ohatra hoe vola lehilahy raha samy karama izy fa raha ohatra hoe le vehivavy ndray dia hoe aleo le vola le lehilahy no ivelomana ato an-trano fa ny anahy navako ny fiainako.
Monina vehivavy zany tsy maintsy hoe izesta fe zany aloha ny voalohany indrindra fa ohatra hoe reny fianakaviana dia zay hatsarany ankonany aloha ny ataony zay vao ny hatsarany tenany fa tsy hoe ny tenany aloha zay vao ny hafa.
Vovokaina dia samy kastanana mamelona madinika manino nefa mamy mamelaka mandaro.
Ny loko anankidimy ny loko de base izy mainty, fotsy, mena, mavo dia manga dia ireo anankidimy eo azona loko rehetra rehetra ireo miato
fatanao sakaiza dia tena manandanja sahiny joro fa tsy aritra eo foana anontaniora ny sampapira fa zao lay fotoana raha sitraka aok'izay ny famoretana ny zoanao fantaro fa azo faritana mandraisa fepetre iainanao finaritra ekeo fa samihafa ny mandevitra sy ny miaritra mandraisa fepetre aza miaritra ny safidinao sarobide tsara ny manamaritra fa
Arrivo izay amanay it's samanapchis.
Thank you so much, the team of Madagascar, for that inspiring video. So for today, we have actually watched 5 videos from 5 different countries, and we have one more to go. Unfortunately, due to the time zone difference, we won't be able to connect with anyone from Samoa, but they have actually shared with us a video to tell you about their social activity to engage youth in their communities. So the video is on some of the highlights of their Start With Men campaign, and it emphasizes their work on how empathy has been used as a method to help the men in their community. So let's now watch what Samoa has got to show or share with us today. Siddharth?
Start With Men campaign. The goal is to end violence against women and girls by engaging men and boys to break norms and cycles of abuse. As VSG Junior has initiated a new campaign targeting the youth of Samoa called Start With Men, highlighting the pivotal role of men that play in preventing domestic violence. The campaign encourages men to recognize the dissonance between beliefs and actions, and teach boys to respect women with the same enthusiasm and dedication in which they teach them other things. The expectations and image of masculinity that our society has successfully withheld, in which some young men nowadays think it's the fundamental measurement on how to become a man. Our goal is, in order for all to contribute in ending violence against women and girls, the inclusion of men will contribute in breaking norms and cycles of abuse, addressing issues that have supported and contributed to family violence. Having open discussions on masculinity are all factors in building agents of change for Samoa, in which we take in consideration the importance of men and emphasizing gender equality, but most importantly, acknowledging and identifying that men need safe spaces for them to explore their weaknesses and strengths, as we understand that to become a man is a sequence of life experiences, and that support is very much needed for their mental health and journey. as VSG Junior believe that equality is possible if we work together, and that in order to implement change, we have to include the men, because violence against women and girls starts and ends with them.
Thank you so much for the Samoan team. Although they're not here, we actually felt the Samoan vibe with their music, and so we are to end this session in a while. And meanwhile, we saw Rahul from India has raised his hand. Do you think, Rahul, do you have anything to share with us on the session? Okay. Anyone else who is willing to share their experience? I know, feedback or anything is welcome. All right. Okay. So with that, the session on social activities is coming to an end. We hope you are able to witness how each country uses creative approaches to reach out to the communities to discuss social issues, and in our case, through the lens of gender and masculinities. So we now have in our agenda is the next session. As Rimjim also mentioned in the very start of the program, we are ready to conduct simultaneous workshops from now on. These workshops will be conducted by youth peer educators of each country. To be specific, we have 4 workshops that will be conducted as separate breakout sessions. And yes, the participants can join based on your interest. So let me quickly take you through the content of the workshops so that you can choose where you perfectly fit in. So we have workshop number 1, which is led by the Netherlands team. In this interactive workshop, they will explore gender and masculinity norms, the expectations of men and women, and the penalties for not living up to them, and examining how they are related to gender-based and sexual violence using models developed through the Imagine project and workshop. Workshop number 2 will be led by the team of Sri Lanka. And if you think you are interested in getting to know about a public campaign, this is the right place and this is the right workshop. So FIS public campaign model for addressing men and masculinities, and the team is ready to share their hands-on experiences with the ones who are interested. So workshop number 3 will be led by the Indian team. The Mitra Indian team of facilitators will engage workshop participants in activities for understanding the characteristics of masculinity that arise from social norms and their effects on women and men. And participants will also be able to understand how to address institutions for establishing positive masculinity. The final workshop, number 4, will be led by the team Madagascar. Their workshop will focus on engagement of youth to identify strategy to combat gender-based violence in a more interactive way. So here are the 4 workshops. And we have few announcements or kind of instructions for the workshop attendees. And they are, please note that the sessions will be conducted in English, and the simultaneous translations for some languages like Spanish and French will be done in the chat box where possible. And Sinead, how do you think that our participants can break out for the sessions? Do we need them to change their names?
Yes, that would be really great if everyone could put the name of the country workshop that they want to join next to their name. I'll assign them the right breakout room.
Yes. So with that, we can move on to the next session. So can we ask them to rechange their names, or maybe just to write their name and the country or the workshop that they want to join in the chat box?
Yes, that would work too.
Okay, so here's the invitation for all. Please do choose the workshop that you're willing to join in and mention that in the chat box. We have 4 workshops. The first one will be led by Netherlands, second one will be led by Sri Lanka, and the third one will be led by the Indian team, and the workshop number 4 will be led by Madagascar.
Shall I randomly assign people who haven't changed their names?
I think just give it a minute, Sinead.
Okay. Yeah, I can open them now. So there were 4 people that have not indicated which one they'd like to join. So I've randomly assigned them, but of course, if they don't want to join the workshop, they'll be asked to join and they don't have to, but I've randomly assigned a few people. Great, so I'm going to open them and close them in 45 minutes. Is that right? Or how are we doing for time?
45 minutes is just fine.
Okay, great. Okay, enjoy everyone.
Can we start? Or wait for 1 minute to wait for the others to join us?
Sinead would be knowing if there's anybody still in any of the breakout rooms.
Oh, yeah.
No, there's no one still in the breakout rooms. We may just have lost some people along the way. I think we should start.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So welcome back here, everyone. For the last part here, we are going to I'm going to ask representatives from each group to talk about the key learnings that they have shared during the session in the break-in rooms. So maybe we are going to start with what group? With Sri Lanka? Can we start with you?
Yes, we have actually Sri from India who would like to share his experience with the workshop. Sri, would you like to share?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Sri Kumar and I'm a research scholar at one of the central universities in India, and I'm working on the issues of masculinity in young boys. Now, it was wonderful to be part of this conversation. And what I liked about the Sri Lankan team was the moment they started, enacting, they have a creative approach for engaging into conversation. It was a role play, and which could immediately, I can link it to the past experience of how men are in certain contexts trying to be consciously or unconsciously engaging into controlling of their partners in the relationship. So that was a key takeaway. And then later on, with a beautiful presentation of like what it takes for a successful campaign, right from scratch, of defining what a social campaign is, like how do we need resources, what are the activities, outcomes, and how do you measure the impact. So like designing a campaign in a very limited time, they have done it beautifully. And in the Q&A sessions, they were able to engage and answer to the questions of how to design a colorful, a beautiful poster and a catchy slogan, so that the target audience which you're looking for, are able to relate, and which becomes very important so that they can find meaning into the campaign. So it's a complete I'm glad that I could be part of this conversation, and looking forward for more engagements like this. Thank you, Team Sri Lanka. Cheers for you.
All right, thank you very much, Sri. That's very interesting. Can we move on? Can we listen to Hannah Mars from Netherlands, please?
Yes, thank you. We didn't appoint someone to talk about their experiences in our workshop, but maybe Shriti can say something. She's still there? Yes. Thank you.
So we didn't have a lot of, but we had some interesting discussions. What I gathered was also that even though, Netherlands, we are saying that it is it is much more progressive than India, but when we did that activity of femininity and masculinity, like the young people still have the same idea. I mean, even in India, we get the same answers to what is expected of a boy and of a girl. So I think that was, I thought it would be a little different, but it is still the same. The idea of control, the idea of being a real man, I think it is still the same across the regions. And second, we had a very interesting discussion on because one of the participants had visited Netherlands, so he was also very curious to know that in the traffic signals they have like the man and the woman like, as symbols in the lights, the traffic lights. So then Hannah also showed us pictures of those where, where there are two girls, two women and two men. So that was really, for me, it was very interesting because it's like a system, like it's a systemic change where, the state brings in certain ideas that yes, there is an acceptance to relationships which are not just heterogeneous, and we are showing it in the signal. So the traffic light, which is so visible and so accepting. So I think that was very interesting. I think that photo, if you show us again, that will be very nice for all of us, Hannah. I don't know if you can do it, but if it's possible.
Thank you, Streets.
I can share her.
Yeah,
I can share her screen.
Yeah,
You're the co-host, Hannah.
Yes. Here you go. This is the traffic lights in the city where I live in the Netherlands.
That's so nice. It's such a simple but such a powerful message.
All right. Can we move on to the other groups? Yeah. Can we hear from the groups from Madagascar? Uns, can you please share the learnings?
Yeah,
Christina?
so I'm sorry.
You were the facilitator, so you have to let somebody who was a participant say what we felt. And then
Rimjeen or Christina
yes.
can
or Ravi. Christina, would you like to go?
Can I?
No, you are muted.
I'm sorry. It's like I started since the beginning. Well, in our group, we were talking about harmful practices that are still kept in our societies. We find out that at the end, there are many different practices in the country. Some of them are similar, but based on same basis as gender inequalities and different treatment to men and women. We also were talking about why the reasons that they are maintained. What I found very interesting, because we know that there are bad practices, but we still have them. So why are still there? And at the end, we try to look for ways to have solutions for these practices, and how we'll be able to implement these changes. So listen to also to the rest of the participants to give some ideas for a common work. So thanks, Madagascar team, for that.
Yeah, and I will add that what I found particularly interesting and relevant was two things that Madagascar team brought out was that if you want to change a harmful practice, you have to replace it with another, a better one. And then you say, don't do this, instead do this. Because sometimes, again, that may be a very simple message, but we just try to remove something without thinking that actually it needs to be changed into something different, something better. And the second very relevant learning was that the person who tries to bring about this change and speak to the community has to be from inside the community, rather than somebody coming from outside. Because otherwise then there will be resistance. So am I correct, Madagascar team?
Yeah. Yeah, you were correct. Thank you so much, Rimjin. You.
Ravi.
All right, so thank you. I think that everybody was participating. We had representatives from the 4 groups, right?
Yes. So India group, then we joined the other groups. So the India group just joined the other groups. So we were part of the rest of the 3. So there was a total of just 3 groups ultimately.
So are we going to listen to the Indians who joined other groups? No. All right. Okay, so...
No, I think we can just move on.
Yes. All right. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for the representative of each groups for that report, for sharing your learnings and the key points that you learned during the sessions. So, and now I give Christina the floor.
Thank you, Min.
Yeah.
Well, at the personal level, it was very nice meeting people that already, some of them already knew thanks to the BreakIN project. That made me think about how it started, right? Because it never ends, and I think it won't end because of the network that we have been able to develop and how this network has been reinforced with the activities, with the local communities. It's been bigger than expected. So how is it started? We found in our area the need to work on gender-based violence, but why, right? We would like to know the reasons why this is still happening. So we found out that in other countries and many other activities and people and professionals were doing same thing, or at least we're working with the same aims that we were doing in our regional and rural area. So we started to look for these professionals to know how to improve our skills, how to improve our methodology, to actually impact in the people that we were working with, and have the results, right, that we wanted to find and to see that it's gender equality. So in this way, we were working with the first project, Breaking the Cycle, that was based on working against gender-based violence between youth. We started sharing practices and experiences on this field and engaging youth on that, because we think that the main base that we need to have working with for youth is having them in the team and having them involved since the beginning. So in this project, we were very lucky to find some people that actually were giving us a bigger idea of how to work that, and we found out that it's really needed to work with men and masculinities and to see the way to change the world, the society, right? So we started with BreakIN projects, focusing of engaging men and boys, because the rest of the work that have been done, it was based on both or more on women, and in our communities weren't working that much with men. We needed to be part of the solution, because they are also part of the problem. So we need them to be involved for that. So that started, and it continues because of the people, because of the meetings that we had together, because all the sharing experiences and all the connection that we felt together, having people with the same ideas, energy, and we were lucky on that. So we continued that. And I think also it impacted in the different organizations, because we have found to do other things that in another way maybe we couldn't do it. And we also had some resources that at the beginning we didn't count with. So we were able to, with BreakIN, to develop proposals, some projects, some materials that actually helped us to work on the aim that we have and we wanted to work since the beginning. And working with youth was the aim since the very first days. And we actually found people really engaged that. And that gave also energy to the communities. The possibility of having people from so many countries and backgrounds working for the same thing, but in a different ways, and being able to have them in the different countries, that made visible the results. It was also interesting. It made people interested on the topic just because they were also people from other countries involved. So that was also very important there. I think the symposium is also about that, getting people from different ideas, perceptions, but connected for one thing, make the society go on because of that. So, I wanted to share that part of the BreakIN, and the impact that it have had because of the exploring of new methodologies. We are used to work on and to study on one way, but the society has changed. We need to change the way that we are trying to get to the people, because people is not the same that it used to be. Well, we have some traditions that is still our own, but of course there's some others that have changed, and we need new ways to impact and to get to connect to the people, especially with the young people, because sometimes, most of the time, we have professionals talking to them, but they need to feel that this is a subject that they have to run and they have to be there. So BreakIN also gave this non-formal methodology to try to cut the thing of we are learning something being a passive way, but exploring other things and activities as art, music, video, photography, and most of it debates and reflections and sharing. And that's, I think, most of the main parts of the BreakIN, sharing all the knowledges and all the energy that we have together. So thank you all for being part of the BreakIN in one way or in another one, because it was really rich for all of us. And one of the resources that also, if someone is interested, they can go to the website of the project, and they can be developed in different languages. And one of it's a video that we made by BreakIN projects, where we have explored other ways or the messages that the men usually listen to during their daily. And we put them together, having different countries talking about the same thing, different boys and men talking about that, about their experiences, with the same aim that to raise awareness about being able to be the man that you want to be. So if you can run the video, it would be great to end this part with that.
I think there's one more, right, Sinead?
Yeah, I thought that it was going to be the other video with that one.
I think she's putting it.
I can't stand with horror movie or black plays. I'm really afraid of it.
So I think it's important to engage young boys and men into the fight for gender equality because, well, without them, we would only have half or even less than half of the world society with us.
Get this message of men of change across to other men.
So I have seen and suffered the effect of toxic masculinity behavior among my family members, relatives and friends.
Don't hear what people tell to you, but share what you are.
Trabaja en tus emociones, trabaja en tu capacidad de comunicación y trabájate a ti mismo, porque al final el problema o la decisión o tus actos son tuyos.
I think on that inspiring note, which all the boys and men spoke about, Christina, we can end here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was a good resume of all the implementation of the BreakIN project and the BreakIN family, and a good end to keep the message and pay attention to that in our daily routines and our day-to-day. So keep on working.